Welcome back, everybody. At this time, I would like to reconvene our hearing for session 2. Our goal for this panel is to discuss the adequacy of current EM and NNSA staffing to conduct oversight missions. This will include discussions of shortages in both facility representative positions for existing facilities and engineering positions responsible for reviewing safety bases and performing safety system oversight, and the approach of delegating inherently federal functions to the contractor as a substitute for federal oversight. This will also include a discussion of future technical staffing needs as new site missions ramp up. For example, the Savannah River Plutonium Processing Facility operations and the surplus plutonium disposition. Dr. Verdon, Mr. Armstrong, and Mr. Budney, with the support of Mr. McConnell, are all on our panel once again for this session. Joining them will be our EM representatives from this morning, Mr. William White as the Acting Assistant Secretary for the Office of Environmental Management. And finally, in this supportive role, we also have Mr. Greg Sawson, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Safety, Security, and Quality Assurance. At this time, I'd like to turn the lines of questioning over to Mr. Summers to begin.
Thank you very much, Chair Connery. To begin today's session, we'll start with a discussion of current staffing levels for key federal oversight positions at the field offices, specifically facility representatives and safety system oversight engineers, who are also, of course, known as SSOs. Facility representatives serve as the primary DOE point of contact for each facility and are responsible for monitoring the safe and efficient performance of all work. SSOs are responsible for monitoring, accessing, and overseeing the system health of vital safety systems. In addition, SSOs generally participate on safety basis review teams, providing necessary reviews of the safety basis documentation. Mr. Armstrong, sir, we have received data on the current staffing levels for the facility representatives and SSOs at the NNSA field office, and I now request that Exhibit 3 displaying that information be put on the screen, and I see it's displaying. Thank you. Mr. Armstrong, sir, as you can see from the table, it appears as though the field office is fully staffed and qualified. However, based on the data from March of 2020, the field office had 5 facility representative positions filled and 3 fully qualified. Given the increased operational tempo at your facilities, can you discuss the justification for removing a facility representative position? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Summers. Thank you for the question. I saw on your chart that you had listed as of March 2020 that we had indeed listed 5 facility representatives. Just getting this information and looking at the staffing analysis that was conducted during that period, they actually identified needing 4 facility representatives, not 5. I'm not sure if maybe perhaps it was overcounted as 5. But our staffing analysis shows that we need 4 qualified facility representatives, and that's what we have on site right now, fully qualified. We continue to evaluate the need. As you're familiar with, DOE standard does require us to perform a facility representative staffing analysis. We recently conducted Jim McConnell's group at NA50 recently conducted their assessment of our office, and that was one of the issues that we need to get back up to date on conducting our staffing analysis. However, I did spearhead with my operations manager to determine what is the appropriate amount of facility representatives that we need to have at the site. And so right now the number is 4, and we do have 4 fully qualified. I did carry it forward to, I want to know that staff analysis also look at our SSOs as safety system oversight engineers. Be sure that we have the right number there in addition. So that analysis showed that we also needed 2, and so we do have that. I carried it forward to nuclear safety analysts or nuclear safety specialists. I also carried it over to health physicists, industrial hygienists, because they're all part of our oversight. And I determined that we have adequate staffing right now for operations that we're doing at our tritium facilities.
I understand. And given that the operations tempo is expected, I believe, to increase, do you continue to review and update that assessment on the personnel needs? And do you expect that you may need some additional personnel in the future with the additional workload?
The answer to that question is yes, especially as we grow our mission to include SRPPF, the plutonium production activities. We will indeed we'll have to increase the number of facility representatives and nuclear safety specialists and so on. Conducting a staffing analysis is something that we'll do on a frequent schedule, and we'll pay very close attention to that. It's very important to me that we have the right number of staff doing our oversight, especially our technical oversight out there in the field.
This is a follow-on, and it touches on your answer, so thank you. The board knows that the site is currently preparing for the proposed Savannah River plutonium processing facility mission, as well as the planned tritium finishing facility we talked about in the last session. The mission work at Savannah River plutonium processing facility is expected to take a significant number of contractor employees to support, no doubt. Can you discuss your future anticipated federal staffing needs and what steps you're currently taking to ensure that you do have the appropriate staffing levels for these missions and for these facilities in the future? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Summers. I'm actually engaged with headquarters, Dr. Verdon and his team, at how we can best staff strategically up as our mission increases. We need to do it in a fashion that does not create chaos, but instead we bring people in at the appropriate level and amount of time. It does take time to train and qualify folks. We're adding a plutonium mission, and the plutonium mission is a different hazard, different than tritium, and so it takes time to train and qualify and get that experience necessary. So those are all things I consider as I look forward to increasing our organization and its technical capabilities. But it's not something that I do in a silo. I engage with headquarters, my human resource organization, our staffing planning and resources as we plan for future fiscal years to be sure that we are all in alignment and we're putting the best resources where we need them. But I do see us increasing in our technical staff, also our contracting staff, my emergency preparedness staff, my security staff, all such. So there's a bright future for here at Savannah River. You know, I'm really excited about it. And we're going to bring the people in with the right momentum. I'm not going to go from 38 people one day to 125 the next day. We'll do it right. And as we increase, we'll start bringing more people in and get them trained and qualified.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Armstrong. I appreciate your answer. Ms. Connery, ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. I have a similar line of questioning for Mr. Budney, and I'm going to ask my staff to put up Exhibit 4, which will look somewhat familiar to you. So we got data on the current staffing levels for facility representatives and SSOs at the EM field office as well, and that's the data that I'm displaying on the screen right now. So based on this data, the field office only has a few vacancies, and you talked about that earlier and how that you've been able to qualify some of your newly hired personnel. But we understand that there have been challenges in the past in both hiring and retaining key oversight personnel for a number of reasons. I think you mentioned this morning that you have direct hire authority, which I personally wasn't aware of. But I also know that your colleagues over at NNSA sometimes poach some of your staff members. So can you just give us an idea of your plans going forward to address the retention challenges that you may face and to make sure that you are fully staffed and remain fully staffed with experienced personnel to perform safety oversight missions?
Sure, we use all the incentives that we can to get new people hired to fill these positions and try to stay aware of when people are going to retire. So, we have a session or recruitment bonuses. We can provide moving incentives when people come in. There's a possibility to repay student loans, all those sort of things we use, especially for the facility representatives. They normally come in as GS-13s and can get promoted to GS-14 upon qualification. So we use all those sort of mechanisms to get those folks on board. And then we do, some focused recruiting too. Clearly, we get a lot of Navy folks that come on board. Which is great because they come well qualified, experienced, and we can get them trained up pretty rapidly. So we keep a constant push on that. And we keep those folks at the top of our priority list too, where we have vacancies. Because as I think was mentioned earlier by headquarters, the HR system can only handle so many requests at one time. So we carefully prioritize which positions we're going after so we can get those positions filled as soon as we can. And to be clear, personnel move back and forth in both directions between NNSA field office and our field office, including my chief engineer who I recently reacquired from NNSA.
Yes.
Reacquired. I like that terminology. So I just want to, on the staffing decisions, are those things that you can make at your level? Do they have to go up to headquarters? Is your staffing process in state, or do you have to go back and do a mother may I to Ike's organization, to Mr. White's organization?
Yeah. So recent change there, and Mr. White maybe will give more details on this if needed, but. We went through a process of getting staffing plans approved throughout the department. EMs were recently approved, so I now have a staffing plan, which I believe is going to make the process a little easier in that I don't have to go back as long as I'm working within the approved billet structure that's in that staffing plan, that I can get right to HC to get those positions refilled. And as another benefit of that staffing plan being approved, we got an increase of about 11 positions over what we were working towards before of available positions that we can fill. So we'll be working to fill out that structure.
So I'm sorry, you tailed off. You said 11.
11 new positions that we didn't have previously. Right. Yeah.
So, Mr. White, do you want to comment on the staffing plans and that new process and how that's all working?
Well, I mean, we sort of just finished the effort, so I'll defer on how it's working until we get a little bit of runtime with that. But over the past few months, we have looked across the entire EM organization and sort of built a bottoms-up staffing plan, looking at position by position needs for the entire EM enterprise across the sites and headquarters. And I just recently signed off on a final list of billets that cover the entire enterprise. And the hope is that we can use that list of pre-approved billets to streamline the hiring process going forward, because a lot of the back and forth and paperwork is in terms of getting billets established and PDs established and that sort of thing. And so having that all laid out up front and authorized up front should help our different offices engage the hiring process more efficiently going forward.
Do you have a Navy quota? Just asking.
I do not have a Navy quota, but the Navy is, as always, a great source of personnel for the department, including EM.
I was just making that reference to something Mr. Budney said earlier. So,
Yes.
As an Army wife, I am a little prejudiced against the Navy folk. So, Mr. Armstrong, the board. Oh, I'm the wrong question. Sorry about that. So, Mr. Budney, the board is aware of site preps for construction activities for the surplus plutonium disposition project that has already started. Can you talk about how you've allocated oversight resources to ensure construction work is performed safely, and any planned changes to future staffing levels needed to provide oversight for the increased mission work.
Yeah, so we share the responsibilities for construction of that capability with NNSA. NNSA runs the project, and so they're responsible for execution of the project actually in accordance with their requirements. We own the facility in which it's being built, so I own the documented safety analysis that goes along with that facility. We don't have an increase in the facility representatives plan for that because it's all still within the same facility. It's not a significantly extra burden on the facility personnel doing that kind of work in there because it's right there inside the facility. That's basically the division of responsibility. We're responsible for the building, all the safety stuff, the safety of the contractors who are working in there, the construction personnel, and NSA is responsible to ensure that the facility is constructed in accordance with the requirements they have for it.
Understood. Thank you. I'm going to turn the questioning over to Ms. Roberson for the next set of questions.
Thank you, Ms. Connery. Dr. Verdon and Mr. White, the board staff is currently reviewing DOE oversight complex-wide. I hope you knew that. It's been going on for a while, so I'm going to assume you are already aware of that. One of the particular areas the staff is analyzing is the practice of utilizing DOE headquarters or resources from other field offices to supplement field office personnel. Every year, we understand each field office develops a plan for their oversight activities, and this includes identifying which oversight activities may require additional resources either from DOE program offices or other field offices. In some instances, using outside resources obviously provides a beneficial use in that it provides specialized expertise in a particular area or provides an objective outside perspective. However, in some cases, the request for outside resources is made due to staffing shortages in the field office or a lack of necessary expertise. For instance, something we've seen is the field office has no fire protection expertise. These shortages could impact DOE's ability to routinely identify and address safety issues when outside resources are not present or handily available. So I'll go to you first, Mr. White. Can you just discuss or describe for us how you evaluate whether to permanently augment field office staffing with additional resources when headquarters assistance is requested?
So just a couple of points. One, I would agree with the point you made that there are benefits to doing this, right? There's certainly sharing lessons learned, sharing best practices across the enterprise is a great thing to do. There are also skill sets and specialties where perhaps we don't need a full FTE equivalent at a given site, and you can essentially share and pool resources and do this more effectively. But there are cases where what you have is essentially a staffing shortage at a given site, and what we're doing is compensating for it. And that situation you don't want to have linger long-term. You want that to be a short-term thing where you pull in those resources that you need to compensate because that's what you need to do. But long-term, the real plan should be to address the staffing shortage. And we've certainly seen that, as you pointed out, at a couple of different sites. So it really depends on whether we expect it to be long-term or expect it to be short-term. Some amount of shared resource utilization, I think, is in the best interest of the department, both from the perspective of sharing information and lessons learned, as well as more efficient utilization of the resources. But you're right, we do occasionally have situations where a particular type of expertise is deficient at a given site, and that we want to make as short-term as possible.
Thank you, sir. Same question to you, Dr. Verdon.
Actually, I would just echo what Mr. White said. I think it's a similar approach that we take within NNSA, and for the same reasons that he articulated.
Can I just ask one follow-on question? And I'll go to you, Mr. White. Is there specific, what I call technical expertise that's needed that you're having trouble actually securing? that you know you need in the field offices?
So, I mean, I'll defer to Mike to correct me, or Greg to correct me if I point this out, but or screw this up. But there's some areas of expertise where the demand nationally is pretty high. Things like fire protection engineers have historically been difficult to attract and retain. And I think we continue to see that. That's always been a bit of a challenge. Same thing, there are specialties where the training within the department takes an extended period of time. And so building up the cadre of people that you need in that area can be challenging. And I think nuclear criticality safety is a good example of that. Another good example of that is our safety specialists, our nuclear safety specialists, the folks who evaluate and review our documented safety analyses across the complex. That's another specialty that requires a bit of time to really train and develop. And so, we have to monitor that. It's not a thing you can go out and easily find. I don't know, Greg, do you any other?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think, when it comes to, FRs, the folks that come straight from the Navy, and I'm an Army guy too, but the folks that come straight from the Navy usually can come up to speed in that role pretty quickly. But, my specific watch area is safety basis engineers right now, because that's, a little bit of an art form, and you can't pull somebody right out of school and get them up to speed real quickly. It takes a fair amount of experience, and I think our contractors are seeing that also. But back on the use of support services contractors, we've had numerous examples where we've brought in retired folks, be it headquarters or field, retired FRs that help mentor and bring the next generation up to speed. So we are trying to use that angle for developing our in-house workforce. Thanks.
Thank you both. I'll ask you, Dr. Burton, if you wanted to add anything, although you seem to have little trouble securing resources, but is there any specific area of expertise that your enterprise struggles to secure and retain?
They're similar to actually what Mr. White said in terms of fire. There's those key competencies sometimes that we have difficulty in. So we continue to strive to bring them on, but there are those few, and that's where kind of the sharing comes to be the benefit.
Thank you both. Back to you, Ms. Connery.
Thanks. So this is from Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Budney, and this is about the SSO program. As you know, the program arose from a board recommendation recognizing the need for dedicated field office personnel to perform oversight of vital safety systems. Originally, SSO personnel were assigned specific systems, but over time, we've noticed that there's increasing variability across the sites as to how they use SSO personnel. Additionally, SSO personnel are also used on the safety basis review teams. And this kind of harkens back to a question that Ms. Roberson asked in an earlier panel. So Mr. Armstrong, can you talk about specifically how your SSO personnel that you know of, again, I know we recognize your relative newness to the site, how they provide regular oversight of the reliability of the safety systems apart from their engagement of reviewing in the safety basis documents, especially given that your field office has only 2 SSO specialists?
Right. So, thank you, Ms. Connery. So my SSOs will go out in the field and do walk downs of the systems. And they're not just solely looking at it from a nuclear safety specialist or nuclear safety perspective or DSA review or part of the safety basis review team. They perform their duties as an SSO, looking at systems, doing independent verifications, looking at system performance. That's what my SSOs do.
So I think the nature of my question was, and I'm having a hard time hearing your answer,
Okay.
just because I think there was some static on the line, but the nature was, given the fact that they spend a lot of their time on the safety basis reviews and they're not necessarily dedicated to certain systems, from your viewpoint, do they have adequate time to actually have operational knowledge and thorough interaction with with the specific systems that they're supposed to be overseeing?
Yes, they do. My SSOs are not just dedicated to the safety basis review team. They're actually evaluating their systems, looking at system performance, ensuring that the required maintenance is being done. We're looking at the health of the system, ensuring its reliability. So my SSOs are not just looked at for safety basis support. They're a much more important role than just that. That's why we have them.
Yeah, I concur. I concur with the original intent of the position. So we just want to make sure that that is still the case operationally, as we've seen kind of a diversity of approaches across the fields as the staff has been conducting their oversight reviews. So, Mr. Budney, the same question for you, recognizing that your field office has only 12 SSO specialists on board against potentially 18 positions. Can you talk about your SSO specialists and how they provide regular oversight of the reliability of the safety systems, particularly given the number of vacancies?
Sure, it is a challenge right now because we do have a shortage, and as I said before, we have about 44% are qualified. So we'll be in a lot better shape once we get those folks to complete their qualifications. But they do also perform the vital safety system reviews for us, and they walk down the systems as Mr. Armstrong said his folks do. So the folks who are qualified are very knowledgeable of their systems and very good at doing those reviews. But it is a challenge right now to get the reviews done on the schedule we'd like to get them all done on because of that shortage of personnel. But again, those kind of folks are at the top of our list for acquiring more replacements, and we're working hard on getting them all qualified so get back up to the regular schedule.
Thank you. So our next question is back over to you, Ms. Roberson.
Thank you, Ms. Connery. And the next set of questions are for you, Mr. Armstrong. Obviously, anybody else is invited to chime in as they have contributions to make. Your office recently transmitted a letter of concern to Savannah River Nuclear Solutions. I think it was on April 4th of this year, noting concerns with recent conduct of operations events at the tritium facilities dating back to January of this year. Some of these events included procedural compliance issues, breach of radiological barriers, and technical safety requirements among them. These events followed a period of relatively strong operational performance. The contractor, in response, and by the way, we applaud the action your office took, even though you had just started. So I don't know if we give you credit or your predecessor credit, but it was the appropriate action to take. The contractor recently revised their performance improvement and sustainability plan, which had been around for a while anyway, with lots of corrective actions to address these issues. And I guess I'd like for you to discuss, if you can, what you believe led to this negative trend and your evaluation of the corrective action plan they've provided to you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. So you're correct. We did transmit a letter over to Savannah River Nuclear Solutions about the trend that we saw in operational performance. It did concern us. That letter did not go over as an action to throw it over the fence, but I had a sincere conversation with the Vice President of Tritium Operations there about we need to get better at conduct of operations. We're doing a lot of great work with extractions, but we can't let poor con ops overshadow the great work that you're doing. When they submitted their initial corrective action plan, we did not accept it immediately. Because it wasn't specific and had some things that were actionable. And so we had another conversation with SRNS to get back on track. And they sent us a plan that we can approve, which is referred to as entitled the Performance Improvement Sustainability Plan. So this is something that we've been working with SRNS quite a bit. We are giving them the elbow room to do what's needed to be done, but we're watching it very, very closely as a good M&O partner that's also demanding and we want results. As I talk to the organization at all levels, I'm a manager that walks around quite a bit. I get to I want to know the organization, both on the federal side and on the MNO side. I see an investment by SRNS into the team. They're talking about the importance of procedure adherence. They're talking about if they have to raise an issue, they can escalate it. They talk, the importance of having the right mindset when you're doing the work. And so those are the things that SRNS is investing in, and it's beginning to produce some good results. I like that they're just not checking the box saying more training or doing another flavor of the day, but instead they're investing in the workforce because they recognize that we have a workforce that's a mixture, young, middle, and older, and that we need to get everybody on the same page. We have a vitally important mission, and we need to execute it safely and in accordance with our very high CONOP standards that the NSA has in this area. We've also engaged with my organization is also engaged all new employees that come over to SR, that come over to the training facilities, contractor and Fed. They talk about the importance of our mission, the importance of conduct of operations, doing things right, procedure adherence. We talk about being very transparent, open, and honest. If you come across a procedure that can't be executed, go ahead and pause work. Let's get it fixed. If you did not follow the procedure, do not try to hide it. Let's go ahead and work through it. So while we did have a few upticks, it was the result of transparency and creating some understanding of wanting to do the right thing. And so I like our trajectory because I see ownership at all levels of the organization. So I'm confident right now we're doing the right things. And so we do meet routinely with the M&O about performance. I take opportunities to write notes to the employees on the SRNS side, or when they catch a small oil leaking from a diesel generator, for example. I will write a little note on the back of my business card. Thank you for a great catch. So my organization is really engaged with SRNS to be successful in this. We realize our mission is very important. We want to conduct it very safely, and we are a partner with SRNS in improving how work is being conducted. I can't stress it enough, Ms. Roberson, that we want them to be successful. We're also pretty demanding, and we want to see results. And when things happen, we do ask the whys, and we want to understand what was missed and what led to that event or condition. So I'm starting to see them becoming more proactive versus reactive, and so that's a good indicator also.
So one of the areas we're watching all of them, but one in particular are the corrective actions related to workforce morale and leadership within the workforce. And how do you view their progress in that area as a part of their corrective action plan?
I'm very good. I'm pleased with that investment at all levels. When you talk to the vice president of tritium operations or the facilities, the senior vice president, he gets it. He recognizes that is a necessary part of the corrective action, is investing in the culture. Being executed. So, as I mentioned earlier, they don't just say, let's go send somebody to training. Let's really develop the person, our new nuclear worker, our future. So there's a large commitment by SRNS to improve conduct of operations. So
I understand you to say you're trying to give them elbow room and you're pleased with the actions they're taking and the pace. Can you discuss whether you've thought about whether additional field oversight, federal field oversight would help in implementing the corrective action plan going forward to ensure the appropriate level of performance over the next several months, given the increased pace of operations, especially regarding the planned tritium producing burnable absorber rod extractions at the tritium extraction facility?
Yes. So when I say elbow room, I'm not in there to tell them how to do their business. I tell them what needs to be done. I don't tell them how to do it. and they give me the roadmap on how they're going to do it. And then I determine what's the appropriate level of oversight to do that. A good example is with our blowers at the treating facilities. We knew we had to operate on a compromised blower system, so we developed an enhanced oversight plan with my facility representatives. I wanted more feet on the ground, more observation, and then I also asked our M&O partner to do the same, which they did. And so, and then we've had very successful runs in extractions, and we're slowly backing off a little bit. Doesn't mean we're just shutting it off. It means go ahead and give them a little more room, let them go ahead and execute. Our M&O is doing exactly what we want them to do, and they're communicating with us continually. As I mentioned earlier, we have daily meetings with our partner. It's every morning. It's my entire organization, their entire organization, and we talk about the performance of the previous day, what our priorities are this morning, and then we revisit it again the next day, and we talk about the challenges that we have there. Some of those meetings are 5 minutes, some of those meetings are 15 minutes. It's a way for us to know exactly what each other is doing, and we're able to communicate. You know, during this period of operating with a compromised blower, we're going to have more oversight, and I want to know how you're going to respond to a condition of having one blower in this case. And they were able to give me the confidence. They were able to develop abnormal operating procedures to address that, and they have performed exceedingly well in that area. So, you know, part of getting an elbow room is also extending trust, and they've done very well at demonstrating that trust and giving us that transparency. That they're very quick to notify me personally and my fact reps and my teams of things that happened, things that occurred, and we stand back and we're watching them to see exactly what they're going to do. If they misstep, we're going to let them know. You know, we want them to be successful. We hold them accountable. We're a demanding customer, but at the end of the day, we have a very important mission to do. We can't compromise safety. You have to do both together. So I'm pleased with what they're doing in this area.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your response, Mr. Armstrong. Over to you, Mr. Summers.
Thanks, Ms. Roberson. Next couple of questions are for Mr. Budney. Mr. Budney, the board understands that a couple of years ago, the EM field office utilized contractors to supplement facility representatives. These contractors were from a support contractor and not from the managing and operating organization. The Federal Acquisition Regulation defines inherently governmental functions as, quote, a function that is so intimately related to the public interest as to mandate performance by government employees. This definition is a policy determination and not a legal determination, close quote. Subpart 7.5 of the Federal Acquisition Regulation states that agencies are responsible for determining which functions are inherently governmental, and quote, this assessment should take place and place emphasis on the degree to which the conditions and the facts restrict the discretionary authority, decision-making responsibility, or accountability of government officials using contractor services, close quote. So 2 questions, Mr. Budney, sir. Sir, as you know, facility representatives exercise a great deal of independence in their oversight of managing and operating contractor. Can you discuss, with respect to a contractor supplementing facility representative positions, how the field office ensured that they were not exercising inherently governmental functions? Thank you.
Sure, those support service contractors only acted as eyes and ears to augment the qualified facility representatives in those facilities who were not afforded any decision-making authority at all, nor any government, inherently governmental responsibilities, but actually just gathering data for the facility rep so that we could make sure we were getting a broad look at the operations that are going on And then the facility rep would determine which items required further action or their personal review or personal observation. It was a temporary measure when we were short on facility reps on board, and as soon as we got out of that situation, we've discontinued that. We also made sure that they were well-seasoned, experienced folks that support service contractor brought in with experience in this particular area, so we trust that they were out looking in the right areas to help us.
Thanks, Mr. Budney. Appreciate the answer. As a follow-on then, do you foresee that there may be a need in the future in order to utilize contractors in this manner in the future?
It's not in our plan. As you've seen, we have 27 of our 33 field representatives, facility representatives on board. We'll continue to pursue getting the remainder on board, so we don't foresee that need in the future at the moment based on the way the hiring is going.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Budney. Ms. Connery, that concludes my questions. Over to you, Ms. Connery.
Thank you for that. So I just had a clarifying question. We've been kind of puzzling this over with the staff, and it goes to a question that I asked earlier about the SSOs. And we're just trying to understand about the division of labor having to do with the surplus plutonium project. And I understand that the building is in K area, so therefore the landlord is EM. The material will come from NNSA. And I asked about, FAC reps, because we expect that there's going to be increase in throughput and glove boxes. And I'm just trying to understand from the both of you how that division of labor works. And again, the question has to do with that increased activity. Why are you comfortable not having increased oversight or FAC reps at that facility? That's to both Mr. Budney, Mr. Armstrong. I don't know how you want to.
I've been in the facility and looked at the physical arrangement, and I don't think it's that complex for the FAC reps we have right now to continue their oversight of that based on the physical arrangement and what will be occurring in that. It is increased operations, and we'll evaluate that as we go, and because we will be doing 24/7 operations in there, which we haven't done in the past. So we'll have to take a look at that and see if we need more folks to cover that on the back shifts. But as far as the physical arrangement of the facility, we don't believe it's that complex. It requires additional folks to use.
Right. So I've actually walked it down. So I understand what you're saying about the physical arrangement, but I was trying to get at the increased activity, the 24/7 operations. But it sounds like that will get evaluated once we get to that point. Is that a fair statement?
Well, we're taking a look at it now because we actually have gone to 24/7 operations on the single glove box that have working there, right? But we're going to add 3 more, and so there'll be even more activity going on. But that's a few years off before we get those additional glove boxes. So we take a look at how it's going right now and how the conduct operations are going at present, which have been pretty good so far. With the single box.
Right. I appreciate you clarifying that for me anyway, because there was a little bit of a confusion. So I'm going to see if my other board members have any other questions for our panelists. Mr. Summers, do you have any other additional questions that you'd like to ask?
No, Chair Connery, I do not have any further questions at this time. I've asked them all. Really appreciate the responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roberson?
Thank you, Ms. Connery. I don't have any additional questions at this time. Thank you.
So I don't have any questions either. I know that from earlier sessions, we had a number of questions that we submitted for the record. So we look forward to getting those answers. We'll catalog them and make sure that that gets over to the department to answer them going forward. As you know, we anticipated a session 3 in which the public was going to be allowed to make comments, but we didn't have anybody sign up in time for us to allow them to make those comments during this time period. So I do want to let folks know who are watching that you can submit public comments to hearing@dnfsb.gov at any time before August 13th, and your comments will be added to the public record for the hearing. So So if you are watching this, if anything piqued your interest and you have comments for us, please submit those, and we will make sure that they become part of the record, and we'll make sure that the department has a copy of those as well, as it will be of interest to them. So at this time, I'm going to turn to my fellow board members for any closing remarks they will have for the hearing in its entirety. So Mr. Summers, closing remarks from you.
Thanks, Ms. Connery. First, I'd like to thank each of the participants and those that helped to put this entire innovative virtual meeting and hearing on for the first time ever. And since this is my first meeting and hearing, quite an introduction. So I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate everybody's efforts to make it as seamless as possible using and leveraging the internet and capabilities that we have. I also appreciate all those in the audience that participated or at least observed today, and look forward to any comments that you may have, and look forward to potentially doing in this format in the future. I thank each of the leaders and the panelists that participated and all those that spoke for their leadership and their commitment and investment in safety on behalf of the workers, the public, and the environment. We are all together safety partners. I appreciate that. I look forward to us continuing to work together to make safety improvements on behalf of our nation. And I'm glad to be a part of it. And we want to be value added. And we know that you're value added to make sure that things are conducted safely as operators and regulators, and we will do our part as safety oversight and our statutory responsibilities to assist you and to assist the Secretary of Energy in that important mission. So thanks, Ms. Connery, for a moment to say a few comments. No further questions, and that's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Ms. Roberson?
Thank you, Ms. Connery. I want to express my appreciation to Dr. Verdon, Mr. White and their support staff, Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Budney, Mr. Rossetti and our support staff. I think we had a good dialogue. We learned some things. We exchanged some information. And as with these hearings as they go, they tend to be a point in time, but on most of these topics, the focus and dialogue will continue on. So I appreciate your attention, your time, and your commitment and your contribution to the dialogue. And I thank you all very much. Thank you, Ms. Connery.
Thank you, Ms. Roberson. I echo the comments of my fellow board members and thank the participants for being here today and for being so forthcoming with the information that we need in order to be able to perform our duties in advising the Secretary and performing our statutory duties, this hearing being one of those. I look forward to seeing the responses to our questions for the record and for getting more clarity, specifically on the tritium facility. The oversight questions are also really important to us as our staff, like as we noted, have been doing a review of oversight in a number of facilities across the complex. We aren't picking on Savannah River. You were the site of opportunity, and we had a long-standing commitment to perform a hearing, back before COVID happened. And to our friends in the area of the Savannah River site, we wish we were down there, and we hope to see you soon and interact with the public and the interest groups that are there, as well as the dedicated staff at the facilities where we do our work. So we appreciate all of you and all of your time. So thank you to our witnesses and for DOE for supporting the hearing. Thank you to our staff who spent many, many hours putting this together and in this unique format. It is both, I think, a curse and a blessing. It's a little difficult to have to pay attention to if is my microphone on, if my camera's on, as well as engaging in a dialogue. But it does allow for a number of people who would not be able to be in the room to participate remotely, which I think is a net positive for us. So those who attended via the internet, as well as elected officials and other representatives of state and local organizations, thank you for coming and for watching. And please, once the link is up on our site, you'll be able to share this more broadly to some of your other friends, colleagues, and interlocutors. The board will consider the information gathered this afternoon to inform any actions that we may take regarding any of the issues that we discussed today. The record of this proceeding, as I noted before, will remain open until August 13th, 2021. So anyone, to include the department, if there's anything that you feel should be added to the record, please let us know, and we will do so. And I just like to reiterate that the board reserves the right to further schedule and regulate the course of the public hearing, to recess, reconvene, postpone, or adjourn the public meeting, and to otherwise exercise its authority under the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 as meant. So this concludes our public hearing at the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board. Thank you so much for your attendance, and we are now adjourned.